So this situation in Waukesha, Wisconsin continues to percolate. We still do not know why the person, the 39-year-old black male who decided to drive a car into a crowd of children, why he did that, we don't know. And we probably will never find out because we are not allowed to ask such questions, because to ask such questions might reveal that certain ideologies are not, in fact, good. According to the U.S. Sun, the suspect in the Christmas parade rampage that killed 5 revelers wrote an anti-Donald Trump rap and declared F the pigs, according to songs posted online. One of his songs includes the lyrics, "They're going to need a cleaner for the bleep we did. All my killers at Gacy, where them bodies hid." Here's a little bit of his brilliant rap.
This that Malcolm X shit, revolutionary. This for my in the can, eating commissary. Okay. For every ghetto in America, I know they wait. This that Donald Trump flow, and whoever.
So, both untalented, incoherent, and has a terrible philosophy. Well, we're not supposed to investigate any of that, though. If Andy No posts anything about his philosophy, the journalists among us will shield us from the vicious reality that maybe this guy believed a lot of really bad stuff. By the way, you know that if there's been a white guy who drove a car into a crowd filled with children and they had found on his Facebook page a bunch of white supremacist garbage, that would immediately be the leading motive that was suspected. We know this for a fact. So, again, blinding ourselves to reality. Okay, so this brings us to the most obvious issue with what is happening in Waukesha. So one thing that we clearly know at this point is that this person should have been in prison. Right? There's no question that this guy should have been in jail at this point. We know that he was out on bail, $1,000 bail, from apparently using his car to hit somebody, like a few days before. And then he was just set free. Joe Biden finally reacted to Waukesha, by the way. It took him like 48 hours to react to Waukesha. Suffice it to say that if the races had been reversed, it would have taken less than a second and a half, right? If it had been a black guy, if it had been a white guy driving a car into a crowd of black kids, Biden would have been to the microphone before the car had stopped moving. But this was a black guy using a car to hit a bunch of white kids. And so apparently that's a different thing. You got to be considered about it. By the way, you should be considered in both situations. Here's Joe Biden finally sounding off about Waukesha.
We know this morning that 5 families in Waukesha are facing fresh grief of a life without a loved one. At least 40 Americans are suffering from injuries, some of them in critical condition. And an entire community is struggling to cope with the horrific act of violence. Last night, the people of Waukesha were gathered to celebrate the start of a season of hope and togetherness and Thanksgiving. This morning, Jill and I and the entire Biden family, and I'm sure all of us, pray that that same spirit's going to embrace and lift up all the victims of this tragedy.
Okay, so glad that Joe Biden could be bothered to emerge and say these things. It is also true that we know, at least from a policy perspective, why this happened. According to CBS 58 in Wisconsin, the Waukesha Police Department is referring 5 counts of intentional homicide for the man accused of ramming his SUV into the Waukesha Christmas parade. Those charges carry possible life sentences. There's the possibility more charges will be filed as the investigation progresses. This was not the first time that this suspect, and I don't use names for people who do this sort of stuff because I don't like people being glorified for this. I don't think they should become famous because of this. I think that they should be thrown in jail to rot and then forgotten because that's what they deserve. This was not the first time this suspect allegedly ran someone over with his car. Just 3 weeks ago, he ran over a woman he had a child with. But at the time, his bail was set at just $1,000. He paid it and was released. Now, the Milwaukee County District Attorney's Office is conducting an internal review into why the bail was set inappropriately low. Justice Janine Gieske, who was on the Wisconsin Supreme Court from 93 to 98, explained, quote, "There are hundreds and hundreds of cases in Milwaukee County. Even the backlog of full homicides is tremendous at this point." Justice Gieske said the district attorney's office recommends the bail amount to a court commissioner before it's approved by a judge. It's not unusual for a court commissioner to be setting 30, 40, 50 cases of bail on a day. The bail amount is supposed to consider a person's prior record, character, whether they might flee, whether they might commit a crime while out on bail. But there are plenty of red flags because this guy had a bail-jumping felony. He had second-degree, recklessly endangering safety felonies. He paid the $1,000 bail. He was released November 11th, 10 days before the Waukesha parade. The DA's office now says in a statement, quote, the bail recommendation in this case is not consistent with the approach of the Milwaukee County District Attorney's Office toward matters involving violent crime, nor was it consistent with the risk assessment of the defendant prior to the setting of bail. Well, there's only one problem. It's very consistent with the Milwaukee County DA, John Chisholm's approach. Yesterday, we talked at length on the show about the fact that Chisholm was made nationally famous for his approach to low bail. He put out a statement saying, quote, the state's bail recommendation in this case was inappropriately low, and they're conducting an internal review. Yeah, no bleep, you're conducting an internal review. Insane. I mean, it's totally crazy. Okay, but again, we are now going to obscure the real facts here. We're going to pretend that it was an SUV, right? The SUV was the problem. It's funny how this works, by the way. If it's white guy in SUV runs down black kids, it's white guy in SUV runs down black kids. If it is, in fact, a black guy in an SUV running down white kids, then the SUV is the problem. Look at the way that the media report these headlines. Right there, there's a headline today from CNN Breaking News, quote, 5 people have died and more than 40 are injured after an SUV plowed through a holiday parade in Waukesha. Well, that's unfortunate when the SUVs just sort of run out of control all by themselves this way. Meanwhile, the left continues to foment the exact same garbage policy that led to this in the first place. So Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez literally put out a message to legislators today asking for bail reform. She put out a tweet. This is sent out within 24 hours of Waukesha. Quote, today we sent a letter with Representative Carolyn Maloney, chairwoman of the Committee on Oversight and Reform, and Representative Jamie Raskin to New York City's 5 district attorneys requesting information on excessive bail in the New York City court system. When prosecutors seek excessive cash bail, it results in increased rates of incarceration, particularly for low-income defendants. Well, we wouldn't want criminals in the prisons. We need them out on the streets, obviously. You know the level of blindness and honestly self-confidence you have to make a statement like this in the immediate aftermath of Waukesha? So this criminal is out on bail, inappropriately low bail, and like within 24 hours, she and the rest of the Democratic Party apparently are releasing a statement calling for low bail. I know what you're thinking. It's time to binge some more Ben Shapiro videos. Well, you are right. You should. But first, like and subscribe. Perfect. I'll see you in the next video.